I don't get why we had to bring that thing here, Katsuki scowled. Aw, come on Katsuki, she's kinda cute. And Kaneko-san said she didn't have space for another one. This was her only request for helping us, Eijirou countered. She has like 100 and didn't want to make it 101, he griped. Katsuki, you groan, exasperated with his complaining. It's just for a little while. I'll take her with me when I move out. They're all staring down at the beautiful, if not a little starved, black cat, currently contenting itself in what used to be Katsuki's spot on the couch. The sweet thing had a spot of white on her chest, and scars gouged into her coat of fur. A handful of small ones scattered through her body, but the most noticeable being above her left eye. Her eyes were clear and intelligent gray, like Athena herself lay hidden within. When Kaneko-san had handed her to you, your heart expanded unexpectedly with love. She was yours from that instant, a sentiment shared by Eijirou, if the adoration in his eyes had anything to say about it. Katsuki's scowl deepened. He glared at the cat like it had stolen his long-lost love. Perhaps she had, considering how Eijirou doted on her. However, despite his hostility, he couldn't conceal the soft spot that had seeded in his chest. The little pest can stay, he muttered reluctantly, crossing his arms and pursing his lips like he bit into a sour candy. He pulls out his phone and you glance over to see a detailed description of cat food recommendations open to his screen. You smile secretly in amusement. This may be a problem when you find a place. Would you three have to have joint custody of her once you move out, like divorced parents? Eijirou scratched her behind her ear, and she purred approvingly. Your worry softened. An issue for the future. For now, they could enjoy their new addition together. Well, what would you guys like to eat? You ask, already pulling out your phone to start scrolling through a delivery app. I'll buy, since I owe you a major one for clearing my name. Katsuki plucked the phone out of your hands. No, I don't like so much damn junk food entering this house. I'm cooking, he says with finality, as he makes his way to the kitchen. Eijirou pouts. And you don't owe us anything. It's unfair what happened to you. It was only right for us to help. You deflate. Oh, well, then can I at least help, Katsuki? You offer. Katsuki's sharp eyes flick to you, and he huffs. Just because we did something nice for you doesn't mean you have to repay us. You had a stressful week. Take a fucking breather. He orders and turns away, beginning to pull out ingredients. You frown. Despite their protests, you knew you would have to find a way to repay them for their kindness. Come on, Pebble, Eijirou called excitedly. Let's try to come up with a name for her. Your relationship with your ex had been a cage, a confinement he'd built to control you, and inject his venom to gradually break down your self-esteem and cunningly make you forget who you were and what you deserved. His insults and violence clogged your mind, shrouding what it had once felt like to not be hated in your own home. But Katsuki and Eijirou reminded you. Their constant encouragement and kindness were a shock to your system. Not that you weren't used to Eijirou's never-ending enthusiasm and Katsuki's personal methods of caring, but living with them, being surrounded by them, and their ceaseless support was jarring after so much misery. The only problem was, after your ex's comment, you began to read too much into their actions. Suddenly, Katsuki and Eijirou were no longer their overly friendly selves. In Eijirou's case, at least. Now, it almost seemed as though they were flirting. Sly touches and offhanded comments didn't seem so innocuous or accidental anymore. Bakugou and Kirishima just want to fuck you, Heath said spitefully. I don't know why. Maybe they just want to spice up their relationship. And once they have, they'll cast you out onto the street. But that couldn't be true, could it? They brought you into their home, took in a stray cat just to clear your name, and treated you so gently it hurt. Like in the days following the incident, one of the first times you began to question their intentions. You'd been attempting a new recipe you'd found on Pinterest, something that looked delicious and more to Katsuki's level of skill, but you'd wanted to attempt it anyway. You'd gotten used to Katsuki's gourmet cooking and thought it wouldn't hurt to be able to make something just as good when you were back on your own. However, you'd bitten off more than you could chew. The recipe had intricate instructions and oddly cut vegetables that you couldn't get to look exactly like the picture. It was frustrating, and you quickly became overwhelmed with adding ingredients that were apparently supposed to be timed according to the temperature and… What the fuck are you fucking up? I can smell it from here. You tensed when Katsuki stormed into the kitchen. His hair was more disheveled than usual from his post-patrol nap. He cast his critical and disbelieving crimson eyes over the mess you'd made in his kitchen, and you shrank back. You wrung your hands anxiously, expecting yelling and every heinous word to be thrown at you for ruining everything yet again. But Katsuki had said nothing, only moved into the spot you backed away from, and taken up the wooden spoon you'd abandoned. He assessed the contents of the pot and sighs, tiredly, exasperated. You can't cook this on high heat, dumbass. The sauce thickens before you have a chance to do everything else. He drops the heat and stirs it a bit more, seeming to be checking if the bottom was burnt by scraping it. Then he turns to you, his mouth open to say something else, but it shuts once he sees you, making yourself small before him. Knowing ruby eyes observe too much, and you shrink from them in an attempt to hide your weakness. How you'd been ready to face the storm if Katsuki had wished to create it, to bear every lightning strike and words of contempt if he'd wished to speak them. The habits of the cage did not leave so lightly. You knew that Katsuki had seen your vulnerability, had racked your brain in that moment for a way to distract him, but he'd merely turned back to your experimental food and exhaled through his nose. The stove clicked off, and Katsuki faced you, fully, as he moved the plan off its plate. What recipe are you following? He asked, calmly. You blink at him, but he is patient and waits, his expression never changing. Eventually, you point to the open Pinterest recipe on your phone. Katsuki picks up the phone nonchalantly and scrolls through it. You can't follow these things exactly. They will never turn out right, he says after a while. They don't say it, but everyone who cooks basically estimates the shit out of everything. It's just about feeling what to put in and when. He pulls out a new pot with one hand, while he continues to evaluate the recipe. We're starting over, he says distractedly. That, he points to your first attempt, we can give to Shitty here. He doesn't have taste buds. Katsuki sets the phone down and sifts through your dishes for the cutting board, rinsing it swiftly and then waits, expectantly, for you to come forward. I'll show you how to make the shapes, he says simply. You'd been so shocked in that moment, so touched, so grateful, that he'd chosen to move on with normalcy instead of singling out your relapse into who you were, with him. You smiled, thankfully, shuffling over to stand next to him. You can't judge Eijirou's taste buds when yours are shot from hot sauce, you joke lightly, trying to maintain the normalcy Katsuki created. He had just rolled his eyes and began his instruction. He was meticulous in his guidance, correcting you carefully and demonstrating whenever you could not understand. Though there was a sprinkle of dumbass and idiot every now and then, he was composed, and in his own way, sweet. The meal was ready and wafting delectably by the time Eijirou popped in from his day shift. Attracted by the smell of food, he stumbled into the kitchen. A goofy smile spread across his lips as he saw you at the stove, and Katsuki cleaning up your hazards. Pebble, did you make this? It smells amazing, Eijirou praised easily. Heat rose to your face, unused to the compliments that seemed to fall naturally from Eijirou's lips. Oh no, Katsuki did most of it, you stammer. Shut up, idiot. I just told you what to do. You still did it, Katsuki said forcefully, leaving no room for argument. He glanced at Eijirou as he cleaned, a disapproving glare sweeping his large body. Go take a fucking shower. You're tracking dirt on my floor. Eijirou smiled apologetically at Katsuki before wrapping you in a big hug from behind. You stalled, resisting the urge to sink into Eijirou's embrace. It just seemed so intimate, something you do with your partner when you get home, even though his arms were placed politely around your torso. I can't wait to try it, he said cheerfully, and let go. He made his way to the bathroom without so much as kissing Katsuki. And though you knew in the back of your mind that he knew Katsuki would reject the affection because Eijirou was covered in dust, it still felt odd that he'd hug you and not his boyfriend. As he flounced into the bathroom, you caught him meeting Katsuki's eyes and ducking his head bashfully. However, you could not see Katsuki's expression. As you try to, Katsuki whips to you, assessing you with his usual scowl. You better take a bath too. Eijirou got all that dirt on you. Right, you said, puzzled by the strange interaction. From then, you took care to notice when Katsuki and Eijirou were being unusual, when their touches would linger and their words would sweeten. It was difficult at first, with Eijirou being the overly affectionate person he was, and Katsuki possessing his own personal brand of what could be considered flirting, if you squint. But the more you watched, the surer you were that there was something they weren't telling you, something they were building up to. Bakugou and Kirishima just want to fuck you. His words echoed in your head, causing a burn in your throat and a conflict in your mind. It was as though the left and right sides of your brain were at war. One side strong and loud and screaming that it can't be true. Eijirou and Katsuki were your friends, and they hadn't done all of that just to sleep with you. It had been genuine concern, a genuine want to help their companion. Yet, the other side still replied, faint, frightened, but what if? And finally, to bring cataclysm to calamity, you were petrified you'd say yes. A fear bloomed from the unexpected shrubs sprouting around your heart. But how could you not develop feelings when both men treated you so kindly, so tenderly? But why had they acted so, was the unanswered question that spun your head to dizziness. You took a breath, imagining that as you exhale, you sink deeper into the bed gifted to you by them. For the moment, you couldn't be sure what was real or what was fake. But you knew you needed space to figure it out. Eijirou picked up the flowers at the center of the table, adjusting the bouquet for the 5th time. They just didn't seem quite right. Some seemed too short for the vase, and he was beginning to worry he'd cut them wrong. Eijirou, I swear if you touch those damn flowers again, Katsuki threatened, as he set his 4th dish on the wood. Eijirou pouted at his hypocrisy. You nervous cooked. I'm allowed to be nervous over the flowers, he defended. You said you wanted to have a nice dinner to tell them. That's what I did, Katsuki countered. Eijirou frowned, pointedly looking at the dining table, which held a dinner course that could easily feed 8. He knew Katsuki had released his anxiety for the evening into the gourmet meals before him, and the dessert that lay in wait in the fridge. He nibbled at his bottom lip, flicking his eyes over the setting and hoping it was enough. It wasn't really that much different from their daily dinners, except the wide selection of meals and the fact that they'd immaculately set out the plates and cutlery. Eijirou had even asked Yamomo to teach him how to make those fancy swan napkins, and he'd attempted to reciprocate with the 3 that lay alongside each placemat. But perhaps he should redo them just to make sure. Though, if Katsuki was fussing about Eijirou interfering with the flowers, he'd surely start yelling if he did the swans a 4th time. In truth, the flowers that scented the table worried Eijirou the most, because it seemed the only thing that separated us from any other date night you joined in on. It was your only clue to what they were about to ask, and he couldn't help but want it to be perfect. "Should we have done more?" Eijirou asked anxiously, taking a hardened thumb between his teeth. Katsuki glanced over their layout, frowning in his own subtle worry. He shook his head. "If we had done more, it might feel like we're pressuring them. Let's just see where this takes us." "I can't believe we're finally gonna tell them," Eijirou says, wearily, wistfully, like a good dream he couldn't believe was coming true, or he hoped would come true. Katsuki grabbed his hands, squeezing firmly, reassuringly, for better or for worse. Eijirou swallowed as he met his eyes, nodding, for better or for worse. Katsuki slid his hand along Eijirou's jaw, carefully bringing him forward to meet his lips, translating through action that it would be okay, because no matter what your answer, they would still have each other. If better became worse, they would have to be enough. The door swung open, and you walked through in casual clothes, probably freshly showered from the agency, and lugging your gym bag in. You smile as you set your eyes on them. "Guess what? Oh, sorry, am I interrupting date night?" "No," Katsuki says simply. "Your place is already set." You scan the table, frowning. "You know, you don't have to include me in every date night. I get that you guys need time alone." "It's just dinner. Don't make a big deal out of it," Katsuki snaps. Eijirou gave Katsuki a scolding side-eye. "We just wanted to have a nice dinner. Nothing to it," he smiles. You nod, placing your bag on the couch and approach the table. "Well, if you're fine with it, I'm starved from patrol." You take your seat and gawk at the swan napkins. "Oh, who made these? It's so cute." Eijirou felt his heart swell with pride. "Oh, it was nothing." Katsuki sent him an exasperated and knowing look as they took their seats. You take a deep breath through your nose and comment, "Everything smells lovely." "Well, I didn't cook all this food for you to stare at. Fucking eat," Katsuki ordered. You chuckle and begin to scoop food into your plate. "Well, I guess this dinner is called for. I actually have some news." "Well, are you gonna tell us your damn news or you're gonna keep edging us, dumbass?" Katsuki says crassly. You roll your eyes playfully, but your wide smile from when you'd walked through the door reappeared. "I found an apartment!" Katsuki and Eijirou stilled. For one, the crust of the earth rumbled in uproar, threatening earthquakes and unleashing the mantle. And for the other, boulders were forced off a cliff, sinking deeper to the bottom of the ocean, becoming worn down by the currents in every soundless, uncomfortable moment that passed. You wanted to move out? Get away from them? Were you tired of living with them? Had they done something wrong? Your smile falls as you realize your friends were not as thrilled about the news as you were. I thought you'd be happy. You know, getting your house back, being a couple more freely again. I mean, I know you've been trying to make sure I didn't feel left out, but..." Katsuki stood up abruptly, his chair scraping as it's forced back. "Is our house not good enough for you anymore? Why the fuck are you moving out?" he yelled. "Katsuki!" Eijirou scolded out of impulse, but inwardly, he combated his own rush of plummeting emotions. He finds the courage to look at you, to see your hurt and confusion as you look at them. "What's going on? Why are you acting like..." Your gaze paused at the vase, dread and understanding bleeding into your expression. "What is this?" you whisper, like you were afraid of the answer. Red eyes met across the table. They'd been so ready to confess, had prepared this dinner to finally reveal their feelings. so they would no longer have to suppress their heart's longing. When the two sides of the Red Sea connect, there's agreement. They would have to speak now, or they may never have another chance. Katsuki sat back in his chair, imploring Eijirou to speak first, out of fear of lashing out again, unintentionally. Eijirou nodded, understanding his partner completely. "We've been meaning to tell you something." "No!" You blurted out suddenly. The air was knocked out of Eijirou's lungs. He thought he was prepared for rejection, but your immediate answer shriveled his heart to the size of a pea. They shouldn't have done this, he thought deploringly. It would just be awkward now and… "No?" Katsuki parroted, his eyes narrowed and analyzing, the deep crimson piercing into your very soul. He considered your reaction when you began to suspect, and something did not feel right. "We haven't even asked you anything yet." You falter under his weighted gaze. "I can't sleep with you guys. I'm sorry, but…" "What?" Eijirou and Katsuki say simultaneously, both exchanging equal looks of flabbergast. "I'm not an idiot, okay?" you say, spurred into speaking by the uncomfortable situation and your pent-up worry over the past few weeks. "I noticed the touchiness and the flirting, and the more I think about it, the more I can see it's been happening for a while. But I never realized. I only noticed when he told me about it." You sadden, realizing your ex was right all along. You sigh. "Look, it's not that I don't want to. It's just that recently I've been having these feelings for both of you. And they're new and confusing, and I wanted to move out so I could figure them out. Or forget them. And I can't, in good conscience, participate in a one-night stand when knowing it would mean more to me, but not to you. So I'm sorry, but my answer is no." Eijirou and Katsuki stare at you, and you shift in discomfort, wondering if perhaps this was a good time to leave the table. Dinner was basically ruined, but as you consider that, the two men in front of you were in the midst of gradually processing what they'd heard, as though manually stripping seed after seed from a strawberry with tweezers. "You have feelings?" Eijirou asked, as though requesting to know if you were hiding a second head. You swallow the lump in your throat, wishing to sink into the flooring. "Yes." "For both of us," Katsuki demands. You are afraid to meet his eyes, afraid to find fury in them for liking his boyfriend. Eijirou was forgiving, but Katsuki may just throw you out of their house in that moment, and really, you didn't expect anything less. "Yes," you admit shortly, as though the words were being pulled through a thorn bush. In a blur of motion, Eijirou had leaped from his chair and tackled you and your chair to the ground in a hug. Your yelp of surprise goes unnoticed by a heavy garnet retriever laying on you and wagging their imaginary tail as they squeeze the life out of your body. "We have feelings for you too. We've had feelings for you since forever." "Can't breathe," you gasp. "Eijirou," Katsuki chides, lightly, happily, the ghost of a grin playing on his lips. "Don't kill them before we even ask them out." Eijirou sheepishly relented, his jubilation barely contained in his wide smile, adorned by his beautifully pointed teeth. He swiftly pulled you up by the back of your chair, righting you to your original spot, though you were far from your original state of mind. Reluctantly, he sank back to his seat, but by the fist curled tightly in his lap, you knew he was resisting the urge to pounce again. His eyes were shimmering so hopefully, you could only turn away from their brightness once Katsuki began to speak. "Listen, I don't know where you got the idea that we wanted to sleep with you from, but that ain't it," he said sternly. "I mean, yeah, we could fuck eventually." "Katsuki!" Eijirou snapped. "What I mean is, we actually care about you," Katsuki continued. "We didn't want any one-night stand. We want to be with you." It was challenging not to lose yourself in the sincerity of Katsuki's words, in the deliberate way he spoke, like he cared to be careful. "Only if you want," Eijirou added quickly, but gazed at you like you were the only thing he wished for when he encountered a shooting star. They waited patiently for you to speak, the air thick with trepidation. But you were dumbfounded and unsure of how to respond to their unwavering openness. "I didn't expect all of this," you say, numbly, honestly. "I thought you just wanted me to spice up your relationship." Katsuki's eyebrow quirked. "With the way you seasoned that last curry, I don't think you know what spice is, dumbass." And just like that, the tension was cut. You pout, and Eijirou helpfully plucks a piece of food from the table and chucks it at him. Katsuki growls sharply and picks up his entire plate with intent, ever ready to take a situation from 10 to 1,000,000. Your lips quirk up a little. You should have never let your ex's stupid comment distort your thinking. They were still the Katsuki and Eijirou you knew, just with a little extra love to give, if you let them. "Can I think about it?" you say, interrupting the impending food war. "This is just really new, and I'm still sort of recovering from, I just want to be sure before rushing into anything." "Of course," Eijirou assures. "Take all the time you need, Pebble. There's no rush. And no need to move out," Katsuki states bluntly, plopping his plate back onto the table noisily. "You'll just end up back here anyway." He takes a heedless bite of his food, apparently the picture of tranquility now that every feeling was exposed and misunderstanding resolved. You glance at him, bemused. "Aren't you overconfident?" Katsuki shrugged. "I always win." You narrow your eyes, a little annoyed by the prospect of being objectified as a prize, and was about to say as much when he languidly tilted his head to you, his gaze clear and genuine. "And you belong here. This is your home now too, no matter what you decide." Katsuki turns back to his meal, the tips of his ears tinted pink. You smile secretly into your plate. "To be seen," you say simply, finding no need to say anything more.